Okay, I'm gonna mute myself and I'll bring folks in.
Thank you.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is the February 3rd Property Committee meeting. For those who are attending, who are not panelists, there will be an opportunity for public comment at the conclusion of our discussion, and we're happy to have you with us. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Thorne, who's going to run our agenda today.
Thank you, Dr. Yannicone, and good morning, everyone, and especially the new members of the Property Committee. So again, this is the Property Committee, Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. As usual, we work from an agenda that was supplied earlier. So I'll start with the first item. If anybody has any questions before we begin. Okay. All right, so our first agenda item is our capital projects for the summer of 2022. And I think Dr. Yannicone, you'll share the list. So every summer we try and do as many priority capital projects as we can. Again, it's just to keep the whole district infrastructure up and running, all our facilities, grounds kept as best we can throughout the years. The list you're going to see shortly is part of a 5-year capital improvement plan. So we slot a certain amount of dollars, a certain amount of projects for each year. As the projects come up, some that we'll see are roof projects. One of the bigger ones, the high dollar one, is the middle school classroom wing roof replacement project. Currently, we have some active roof leaks right now, actually, on the 3rd floor of the middle school. So we're slowly getting more and more leaks, and we're trying to address them until we can get the roof replaced. So again, as the list comes up, I'll just go down a
I
few.
apologize, Mr. Thorne, I'm just getting screen sharing rights.
Yep, no problem. So with these, they're listed in a color-coded priority list, red being priority 1 safety issues, blue priority 2 are most pressing issues for the summer, and secondary needs are listed in the black. We also have some items that are in green. They're for energy saving efficiency projects to keep our electricity bill down throughout the years. We've done quite a few of those over the years, and it's really reflected on our utility bills. I think we're doing a really nice job making improvements, energy efficient improvements, and it's reflected in the amount of money we're paying in our utilities. So for one, I do want to point out, I guess, a couple for safety upgrades. Each year we evaluate our camera systems, our security systems. We actually have an independent firm in now, SL Technologies. They're evaluating all our cameras, and they, along with Mr. Steve Shinta, have noticed that our card access system that lets us into the buildings, part of it is what they call proximity devices. They're on the interior of the foyers and entranceways. What they do is sense your motion as you're leaving the building, and they actually unlock the door. So when you come up, you just push the door open and you can leave. But what we've noticed is that if there's people in the hallway or the foyers by these proximity devices, that they activate the door and it unlocks it. So that's obviously a safety concern, that if some type of intruder was outside and you walked up to the door, it's going to unlock the door. So we're looking at putting in new equipment there. Basically a retractable latch type of system where it just retracts the latch. And when you're leaving, you push the panic bar, as in any building that everybody has been in. So it won't automatically unlock the door when someone comes up close to that proximity device. So we're looking into that right now, into the equipment, developing specs, and we'll put that out for bid hopefully shortly. We're doing some classroom painting, some hallway painting, middle school, high school. We're also putting in wayfinding signs at the high school and the middle school as well. The signage just needs to be improved when you pull into the parking lots, which way is the gym, where's the main entrance, how do I get to Erdenheim, wayfinding signs like that. Also at the middle school, we're going to put interior wayfinding signs for students and staff as well. We're doing some fence repair. At the high school, another energy efficient project is replacing what they call the flow medium in our cooling tower up on the roof. So when the water goes through the cooling tower, it goes through this medium and it dissipates the heat. The medium we have up there now is roughly 15 years old. It's running less efficient than it should be. So we're looking to replace that fill, that medium fill. Down at the new school, when we built the new school, we didn't really address any of the public sidewalk around the school. So along Paper Mill Road in Montgomery was the existing sidewalk. It was in good condition years ago when we started the project. Now, after review, a few hard winters, there's quite a few cracked sidewalk blocks, uneven sections. So we're looking to replace concrete sidewalk there, as well as adding a walking path. What we noticed at the front of the school in Montgomery, the front driveway, when the walkers come up, the parents with strollers and kids that have to go to the walker door, that they actually have to enter the driveway, the narrow part of the driveway on Montgomery Avenue. So it's really a safety issue. So we want to basically just build a small walk path on the side of the driveway so we can get the people up safely and get to the walker door. So that would be that project there.
Mr. Thorne, I'm now able to share the screen, just making sure
Very
board
good.
members can all see.
Okay,
I'll try to make it a little larger for you.
thank you. Yep, so as you can see there, the red, blue, black, the green. That's how we reference the priorities there. Line 15 is the admin main foyer roof. That's got some soft plywood up there, needs to be replaced. It's just the small section where the main entrance is. As I referenced, line 16 and 17 are the security upgrades, the cameras, replacements, additions, and the licensing fees for those. Line 17 is the card access equipment, making those upgrades. 18 and 19 are energy efficiency projects that we do. They're ongoing. They replace the building automation system controllers in our HVAC units. They're the computer inside all our HVAC equipment. So we replace them as needed a couple times, a couple each summer. And again, the LED lamps we're replacing mainly at middle school in Erdenheim. Great project. We're getting Pico rebates for purchasing the new lights, the new LED lamps. So roughly they cost about $7 a bulb, and we have thousands of them. Pico's given us roughly like $5 in rebates for those bulbs. So we're getting them for about $2. Our in-house electrician has been replacing them. It's been an ongoing project. So, and again, that saves on our utility bills immensely. So it's a very nice project there. Line 20 is the concrete sidewalk that I referenced, the fence repair. Line 22 and 27 are the seal coating of the parking lots and line striping. That's already have been folded into the Enfield Athletic project. We bid that as alternates and got some really good preferred pricing there. So we'll be doing those parking lots this summer. And again, there's some painting, some wayfinding signs. And line 30, we'll discuss in a minute, is the transportation facility. But I think some of you are aware that the roof is in dire need of replacement. Mr. Bray, I'm sure, can speak to that. Yeah, so that's our list of capital priority summer projects for 2022. So if you guys want to take a minute to review, if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Mr. Thorne. Great job. This is a very reasonable list. Good explanations on everything. Love the energy efficiency stuff.
Yeah.
We'll leave the roof for a minute because we're going to talk about that. The only line item that's like surprisingly large is the security upgrades.
Right.
And obviously that needs to be done. My question would be, like, we're obviously working with a vendor who knows what they're doing. And it seems like the installation of these proximity sensors would have been a mistake. Is there anything in terms of, discount rebate, or are they working with us on replacement and pricing based on potentially installing what would be the wrong thing for a school?
Right. When these were installed, these are existing pieces of equipment, and there's going to be some added ones. That was the latest technology that was, suggested to the district years. They've probably been in for, I'm going to guess 15, 20 years.
Okay.
The card access system. So it's a mag lock, and there's a magnet at the top of the door. So when they were put in, that was, what everybody used. That was standard technology at the time. So we built a new school. We did not install the magnet locks on all those doors down there. We went to the retractable latch type. So we don't have to address the new school at all. But the other 3 schools in the administration building have these similar devices. So been in many schools, they all have this technology. But again, as we're surveying the district security, Mr. Shinta has been a great help with it. He immediately pointed it out. And again, the company we're working with said, yeah, that's something we really need to address. So it's not that no one put in the wrong thing, or, at the time. It's just a security upgrade we noticed, and we really need to jump on it. And
that makes sense. It's like evolution of best practices, right?
It really is. Yeah. I mean, some people put in the Magnox in certain situations, but again, when you have the kids walking in the foyers, down the hallways, and they just inadvertently walk in front of that sensor, it activates the door to unlock it.
Sure.
So,
okay, that all makes sense. Thank you.
thank you. So yeah, again, go ahead, Mr. Bedard, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is again a part of a 5-year capital plan. We do have other projects on there, and they're slated out 5 years with estimated costs on them. I think Ms. Green could speak to the dollar amount, how our fund balance looks there for capital projects and everything.
Sure. So a capital reserve has been established in the past, if you recall. There's been transfers into our capital reserve to address our bus fleet as well as capital projects, so that we can pay for upgrades and maintenance, that preventative maintenance and all types of maintenance around the district throughout the summer for Mr. Thorne. So we have over $3 million in that set aside fund. And then there's also assigned funds in our fund balance, if need be, to take money for capital projects such as these. At this time, there will be some items on this list that I fold in because I believe they're more operational than something that would be considered a long-term capital need. So I will work with Mr. Thorne as far as the funding goes. So it'll be split between building into the operations as a one-time operational hit, and the other stuff, and obviously the bigger items such as the security upgrades, the roof replacements that will come from our capital reserve fund. Any questions with that?
Okay, on to number 2 of the agenda, the bus garage structural evaluation. So,
Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry. I had a question and I missed the window, but I'm sorry. You know, because I mentioned this to you, that I have had several questions from community members around field maintenance. My assumption is field maintenance is part of the operating budget, not capital improvement. And because there's no projects there on summer upgrades or maintenance on the fields.
right, correct. Yeah, that is an ongoing maintenance item with the fields. One project that we do have slated on the longer capital list is the middle school fields. I think we've done a nice job with the high school with those fields, but the middle school, looking at field renovation there, specifically the athletic track that goes around the middle school football field. It's a macadam track, several years old. It's showing signs of wear. So we're looking into what it would take to put a new rubberized surface track at the middle school. Yeah, so that's a big thing. Irrigation, underground drainage, things of that nature. Quite an extensive project. The feeling there was that, boy, we really have done a lot of projects in the last few years. Let's just take our breath, take a breath, do what we have to in priority needs, and then look at some of those larger projects that specifically field maintenance and track replacement.
Okay. I think important, not urgent, in an upcoming property committee meeting. I think it'd be really good to look at field maintenance plan and any impacts on longer term spending. Just because we've done so much to invest in these fields, I just want to make sure that we have an adequate plan to make sure that they're, kept up for the community.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Thank you.
Bedard, one thing I think is worthwhile for us to mention is that we have added an additional grounds person into the budget for next year because of the 3 additional fields that'll be at the Church Road site. And we have talked about the fact that expanding the number of fields we have alone, from a maintenance perspective, we need additional manpower or woman power, depending on who we hire. But our plan is to have that into the budget for the fall.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Absolutely. Okay, any more questions? All righty, thank you. Okay, agenda item 2 is the bus garage structural evaluation. So Dewey Engineers, we contracted with them to do an evaluation of the actual bus garage itself and the site that it sits on. So this summer, we really took a lot of damage down there with 2 storms, the Hurricane Ida, and there was a severe storm July 21st of this year, hail and everything. So the bus garage basically got flooded again. Unfortunately, Mr. Bray's office actually suffered a lot of water damage in there. He had probably a few inches of water actually in his office. So those 2 storms were quite substantial this year. So we were looking at it as in a structural way. We realized that the roof needs to be replaced. That was on the list last year. We deferred. So we thought, hey, let's look at the building as a whole, the site as a whole. Do we really want to invest dollars in the roof if the site is just not, what we need in the future? So Dewey Engineers came in, did a structural analysis. Their findings, their conclusions were the building's still standing and it will continue to stand, but there's definitely maintenance issues that need to be addressed. There's masonry cracks, lintels, steel lintels above doorways and windows that are rusty and, crumbling. One thing that was a surprise to me is there's underpinning. The water has gone underneath the foundation walls, and the two furthest garage bays where the mechanics do the majority of their work. Apparently they observed the floor shaking as buses were coming in. The floor actually had movement. So it's suggesting that it's eroded under there, that the soil has washed out underneath the slab. So some of their suggestions was you would pump grout underneath these areas, underneath the foundation walls, underneath slabs, to stabilize the footings and everything. Again, if you observe around the building, there's cinder block masonry walls that are moving. They have cracks in them. There's expansion joints that moved apart. Obviously, the roof is a big concern. So they did a nice job on the analysis. They actually gave us, I guess, two options that we're looking at. There is more options, I guess, that we could ultimately look at, but we would just, we're really thinking long-term for the site. So two options that I'm suggesting is that if we stay at the existing site and we perform some of the suggested extensive renovations, it would be estimated at between $2 and $4 million to do all the repairs suggested in the report. So quite a bit of money to just stabilize the existing structure. One of the suggestions is to build a flood wall because the property floods so often. So there would be grade changes, so elevating areas where we could to bring the grade up, as well as building some type of flood wall, a bulkhead like you see down the shore and on rivers and everything. So quite extensive project there. The other option would be to perform minimal repairs, including the roof and some of the structural repairs at a cost of, say, $500,000. And again, that's including the roof. And look for another site, basically. Mr. Bray can attest how small the site is. It's a 2.25 acre site. You're aware that we can't house all our buses there. Half of them are at the middle school. So if we were to perform minimal repairs, $500,000 or so, and then we look for a new site. Mermaid Lane area is where all the suggestions have been, because it's a industrial commercial area, not a lot of neighbors that would be opposed to a bus garage in their area, close in their community. But that's a multi-year project, and that could go cost anywhere from $10 to $15 million to acquire the land, build a new facility, and again, it would be a few years down the road. So that's basically what the report said. Just a little, synopsis of where we're thinking. So I would like to open it up to the board members to get your thoughts.
Question. So we have been talking about moving the bus garage since I've been on the board. So that's about 10 years. I know there's been, waves of time where you guys have actively looked for a space. The other issue we ran into was selling that property because there was some environmental issues of that property. So can you just give a little bit of history for the members here that don't know it?
Yeah, thank you. Yep. My apologies for not mentioning the environmental issues. So yeah, we did have a few underground leaking fuel tanks, and it is registered with the DEP as a site that needs to be cleaned up environmentally. We're still in the process of doing that. I guess 10 years ago, the township was willing to purchase that property. I think it was $1 amount or so. Right before that happened, the township brought in an environmental company and did some analysis, tested the soil and everything, and it really scared them off. So that the whole deal fell through because they didn't want to undertake a property that had environmental issues. So again, over the years, we've had many floods. The guys down there actually mark on the walls every time they have a foot, 2 foot of water down there. They actually mark it on the wall and write the date on it. So it's probably flooded 5-6 times since I've been here. Very substantial flooding as well too. So I don't know if I know any more of the history than that. Gretchen, are you thinking of anything else that I should share?
Well, I just want to make sure that we take into consideration that if we are looking for another site, then we still have this site that we need to either sell or do something with. So that's going to add to the cost probably.
Right. As far as our DEP claim with the cleanup that we're doing, we're at the closing stage of that, where we'll be at a statewide health standard, basically freeing the deed of the property up, saying that no longer do we have environmental issues. So over the years, we've done cleanup. We're continuing to monitor it. So we're hoping that not in too distant future that we'll have the statewide health standard that if we were to sell the property, it would not have a disclaimer saying that there's environmental issues.
And there's been several sites that you guys have looked at over the years that wouldn't work. So that was the other issue, is that there really isn't a lot of options.
Right. Yeah, I did have conversation with the township about that, and they did say in Mermaid Lane there was properties available. I don't know if they're publicly on the market, but they did make a few suggestions. We certainly could reach out if that's the direction you would like to pursue. But yeah, I mean, the Harston Hall property, everybody says, why don't you put your buses there? And I don't know how the neighbors would react to a bus garage right on their doorstep. So, but I guess just to sum it up, that the bus garage is in need of a roof. It leaks, it's actively leaking. The water comes through and it's got like lime deposits in it. It drips on the buses, it's staining the buses. Structurally, it's not bad, but if we keep letting it go, the substructure of the roof under the roofing membrane, it's potentially going to crack up and become a safety issue. So whatever's decided, I would really recommend putting a roof on there as the first priority.
I think I just want to clarify as well. So in that summer projects list, we have factored in the roof into that 1.5 million. And Kara's already explained how we would be financing that this summer, funding that this summer, as well as the most significant structural repairs. So that is folded into current expenses, our plan for this summer, because we don't see that as something that we can necessarily wait on from a safety standpoint. And it might also help us to give some time to consider whether or not the board would like us to explore an alternative site.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question along those lines, Dr. Yannicon? If we're going to explore an alternative site, what's the process involved in that? In other words, if we're going to do that, do we need to start figuring out how to do that now? My guess is probably yes, but
Given that it's a multi-year process, yes. And Mr. Thorne, because you've done this before, why don't you explain the steps that would be involved?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the first thing is land acquisition. That is the hard part. Is there a parcel of land large enough to house a new bus facility? So again, the existing site is 2¼ acres. Maybe Mr. Bray can help out. Minimum of 10 acres you would see for the whole bus fleet and the mechanics, the bays that you would need. So that's quite a big site. we would have to go through the entire process of that land acquisition, file with the township for planning, present to the township that we'd like to build a facility, go through all those approval processes, develop specifications, what type of building we need, and basically take it from there. Mr. Wright?
Yeah, I would say 10 is a dream. We may be able to do it at slightly less than 10. I typically say for a fleet the size that we have, we probably would not be looking at less than 7. And really, if we were looking at any size, I think a part of that is getting some rough sketches, especially with the shape of any parcel, of how we could utilize that and make sure that an entire bus fleet could be parked there. As well as the challenge of what we don't love to think about. We have people that work in those buses, so we have to park all their cars too. So it's a lot of space that we need that can be done in a couple of different ways. And as Mr. Thorne referenced, it's very much a not in my backyard project. It's tough sometimes to find locations and reassure the public that it's truly not that terrible. In my past, I've been in a couple areas where a few years into opening a new facility, neighbors have said, okay, you guys actually did a really good job. You're not that big of a pain to us, but it's a big part of the process, reassuring community members that it's not going to be a huge disruption in their lifestyle as well.
Yeah, and it is a multi-year process too. Again, just finding a parcel of land that may be suitable. You may be looking at 3 to 5 years down the road before a facility is able to be occupied.
Mr. Thorne, can I ask too, it's sort of, it feels anyway, like the conclusion is leaning toward getting a new site. So I'm just wondering, the middle ground option, I guess, that you mentioned, which is doing some repairs and maybe building a retaining wall that would cost around 2 to 4 million. Is there any indication in the report, or have any of the folks from Dewey mentioned how long that would last? It just, I'm sure you can tell my question is really, if we go ahead and spend 4 million now, is that only going to buy us 3 years, at which point we're going to have to do this again anyway?
Right, yeah. So upkeep and maintenance on any of the repairs that's done would be key for that, how long we could stay there. I guess the factor we don't know is how many more times is it going to flood? We can, basically try and, keep the water out of that site, but where the location is next to the pond, it's ground zero for stormwater. So we could put, a few $1 million into it and have the biggest hurricane blow up the East Coast that we've ever seen. And unfortunately, it'd be under 2 to 3 feet of water again. So it's just, that's really, yeah, that's, and unfortunately, it seems that we're having more and more of these bad storms. We did have conversation with the township about upstream. All this water keeps coming down to this area. What can you do to prevent it? But, with those really heavy storms, it's anybody's guess, how flooded we're going to get down there.
I mean, that's the main thing for me that I'm thinking is, we can't control that. And no matter what we do, we're just going to keep having to deal with the same problem over and over again. So, I think it might be worth really considering finding a new location.
Well, we certainly can begin that step, but again, I think it is crucial that we do put the new roof on, make these repairs to seal the envelope of the building up best we can until, obviously this warrants much more further discussion with the full board and everything. But just again, long range, we probably should be looking for another site. In the meantime, we'll tighten up everything we can down there, put the new roof on, and continue the discussions.
Can I just throw out one thing to really complicate the conversation? Every couple of years, we've had a discussion of the pros and cons of maintaining our own bus fleet. And every time that we've had this discussion, right, we've come back to the conclusion that it's not it's not just a luxury, it actually allows us to be more efficient and effective as a school district. But I do think if we're talking about a $15 million investment, we should, for completeness of the conversation, just make sure that over the next X number of years, there's not an alternative path for bus services other than maintaining our own and investing that level of money. I'm fully supportive of us maintaining a fleet and having our own drivers and making sure that we are an independent school district. But I think we owe it to taxpayers for sure to make sure that we're just paying attention to the alternatives that we would have. And given this is a multi-year process, I think we have time to do that analysis. As a first step, we should kick up the last time we did the analysis and just make sure that there's not anything to freshen up for the assumptions that we've made. But maybe if we could do that as a fast follow at our next property meeting.
Very good.
And just, for the record on the conversation here, I do think we should fully explore a new site. I worry about the day the insurance company drops us for all these claims that we have. The site is just, it's really not good. And I wouldn't feel good about investing a number like $4 million into the existing site.
Okay, yep.
And
Everybody's.
Other
sorry.
thoughts while we're here together, guys?
No, I think that's a really good summary. I was actually thinking about that too, Jeff, about the making sure we're going to still maintain our own bus fleet too.
Okay. But is everyone in agreement that we should go ahead with, say, minor repairs and at least replace the roof for the summer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good, very good. Yeah, we actually at the last property committee, we asked for approval to go out to bid these jobs, the bus garage roof as well as the middle school classroom wing roof. So we had a develop specs, had a pre-bid meeting. The bids are due December 10th, so they're due next week. So hopefully if they're favorable, we'll have board motions for both the bus garage as well as the middle school and admin foyer roofs.
It would also be good for completeness of the conversation to know if we could estimate the value of the property if we were to sell it. And I know that would change X number of years from now when we would finally sell it, but are we talking about a worthless piece of property, or are we talking about an offsetting, significant offsetting dollar amount that we could get when we sell the property?
Very good. Yep, certainly.
Great.
The other thing I'll just remind the board members of is we are optimistic that we are going to receive some return financing, some grant funding on the Church Road project. You may or may not recall that we had applied for a grant for approximately 50%, roughly $2 million. And that's certainly a nice bonus if we can make that happen. We're waiting right now for the answer on that grant application.
Very good, very good. Okay, any more questions? I'll move on to the third agenda item. Okay, the Enfield Athletic Field project update. So just a little bit of the schedule update. We did disconnect our utilities from the old building, water, gas, electric. They've all been disconnected from the school. I don't know if anybody has ridden by the school in the last few days. The construction started deep demolition started Tuesday. So unfortunately, there's big holes in the building and they're well underway. So
I have to say I was a little choked up about that. Saw it the other day. I saw it yesterday. Yeah.
yeah.
Something that I wanted to mention, and I just heard it, out in the ether, but it sounds like there has been some time capsules placed on that site in the past. When they're digging stuff up, do they look for things like that? I think they found one at the Erdenheim site when they did that project, actually. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yep. So some of the staff members actually said they put a time capsule under the gym part of the building.
Okay.
So there is something there. I asked what it was. Was it a wooden box, a metal tube? They really weren't sure. It was quite a while ago. So, yeah, so I did inform the contractor that, hey, there is potentially some time capsules here. So keep an eye out. So,
Okay, great.
and then I think the EEHSP wants to do a fundraiser with bricks from the old building. We've had a few people call up asking for bricks. So we're pulling some bricks aside. We'll let HSP know that, hey, we got these bricks and we'll support any fundraiser that they want to do. So if you get any question about bricks, yes, we have them, and we're hoping that, the HSP will put something together with it. Okay, so just for information, all the metals, the wood, the construction debris, the masonry projects, it's all being separated for recycling by the contractor. So that's what you're seeing going on now. They're making little piles of different things, and it'll all be recycled accordingly. So the demolition is expected to take roughly 2 months, weather permitting. So the construction of the new fields hopefully will begin the first week of April of 2022. So if all goes well, the anticipated project completion date is October of 2022. So there's a potential that our middle school soccer team, any of the field sports at the middle school, may get an opportunity this fall actually, to use the new fields. So unfortunately, our middle school softball teams, though, are without fields this spring. So we're working with the township and other organizations that potentially could let us borrow some fields for the girls' 2 softball programs this spring. So I'm working with Mr. Payne there to figure out something on our softball teams. So the township permitting and the financial security. So all our township, PennDOT, and Montgomery County Conservation District permits have been secured. So all the ducks are in a row as far as permitting and process are going. So that's all in the works. The financial security document, basically it's an escrow account that the township puts in place. It ensures that the school district will do what they have said they were going to do according to the planning documents. So our solicitor and Ms. Green are working to finalize the terms and conditions of that document. And that's the last piece of paperwork we'll need to finalize. But as you've seen, demolition has started and we're underway. So any questions there with the project? Okay, excuse me. Next on the agenda is the stadium lighting use. So this is the high school stadium. So we have a current agreement with the Fraser Road neighbors concerning the high school stadium. It was drafted back in 2002, a letter with the solicitors from the school district and the residents organization. And at the time, there was concerns with a stadium construction project, as well as the future use of the fields of the stadium. So that's when the lighting was raised, put in. So part of that agreement, that letter, was to limit the amount of spectator events that go on in the stadium. So annually, we do review all the spectator events that go on in the stadium. So we try to keep it down. There's a number, 20, 25 events that there won't be, more than that, actual big spectator events. So we do review that and we do keep that down. I will say though, since the recent renovations, that outside user groups are really wanting to use the fields more. So we do turn the lights on for those. We really don't consider them spectator events because there's not a lot of attendees at these. So, but the lights are kept on more frequently with outside user groups. So the community use of the track, I think has been a bit of an issue with some of our residents. So during the fall and winter months, the stadium athletic track is open to the public from 5:30 to 7:30, Monday through Friday, every morning. The lights are being put on for community members to use the track. So also on Saturday, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and also 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And that's a Saturday. Sunday, the hours of use are 6 a.m. until 11 a.m. And then again, Sunday night, 6 to 8. So again, during these times, in the winter months, daylight savings time, the lights are being turned on for community use. There's always a security guard there. I think the concerns are that the neighbors are not seeing a lot of participation in the stadium. So they look out, they see the lights on. There's nobody out there. There may be 1 or 2 people jogging around the track. So that's been a concern raised by our neighbors. So just another recap and update is for the summertime. As the days get longer, daylight saving time kicks in, we won't need the lights as much. Our summer hours for community use are 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that would be all week long. So as the sun stays up, comes up earlier, stays out longer, there'll be no need for lights in the stadium. So is there any comments, questions?
So I just wanted to clarify, the options we have that we see it currently are, we could continue as we've been doing, which is during shorter days, maintaining lighting during community use hours, which are not spectator events. And our solicitor guidance is that that is in keeping with the agreement. However, there is concern from community members on Fraser Road that that wasn't the spirit of the agreement. And so an alternative option would be that we open the track and have security, but do not have the lights on in the early morning and early evening hours. Still provide access to the community, but without the lights. And then I think that would reduce the amount of lighting that members of our community on Fraser Road would experience in the stadium. We have, as Mr. Thorne said, we reviewed with our athletic department. We have an increase to the number of stadium events. We continue to hold the same league competitions as always. But I think the difference is very likely the lighting during community use periods. And so we just would like some direction from the board as to what you would like, you would like to see.
I've heard comments not even from the Fraser neighbors about questioning why the lights are on at night when there's nobody there. So I guess the real question is, if it's really not being used during those times in the winter when the lights are on, then it doesn't really make sense to have them on.
Right, yeah, we could modify the times of community use. Again, the school ends roughly at 2:30, but we could give the opportunity for the community to come in earlier, say 3 to 5 in the evenings. This way you wouldn't need the lights. So I guess the issue becomes if it's that communication with the community. This month the lights are on from 3 to 5, but next month they're from 7 to 9 type thing. You know what I mean? We would have to get that out to the community. I could see them having frustration, like, well, when is it open? And we would direct them to the website. Hey, this is when the track's open. Perhaps we could put the signs up all over the stadium saying when the times are.
Would it be a safety issue having it open without the lights on in the dark?
Well, we've actually, believe it or not, we do have cameras out there. People jog around that track 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. It's amazing. People come from all over to use the track at all different types of hours. With all the renovations, the modifications we did there, we don't want to see it be damaged. So we need to protect that investment. So that's why we do have the security personnel there. We don't want to just leave it open 24/7. I definitely concur with people driving by, not seeing many folks there. We don't get 10, 20 people out there every night when the track is open. You may only see one or two, sometimes none. So I think it's definitely something, we should definitely review and perhaps modify those times and work on how we get that information out to the community.
The only concern I could see with changing the times, other than the confusion, is that some people wanted to use it after work hours. Or, for example, let's say we had a group of friends and neighbors who were involved in the swim program in the winter, but they were getting ready to play lacrosse in the spring. Sometimes they want to go over to the track and the stadium after swim practice in order to use the field. So from a safety standpoint, we could just indicate that on the shorter days in the winter, it's really only open if you have, your own little headlamp, or, to the extent you can use the facility in the dark. And that would allow them some dusk time, but you know how early things are in December and January. I think that's the question. The remainder of the year, I don't actually think it's an issue because we won't need the lights. Because as we return to daylight savings, there won't be an issue. We'll have the security, we'll have the stadium open at designated hours, and we won't need any lighting. So I think it's this question of winter hours. And we could, during the winter, move the hours to earlier, although that would lock out people who are working till 5. Or we could just leave the lights off and leave the stadium open with the security in place.
We don't allow community use when there's athletic events going on, when there's school events going on. We don't permit the community come and use the track while there's games going on.
And I do believe we have some community members, and I don't know if this would be appropriate at this time to invite them to raise their hand if they're interested in making any comment, because I believe our attendees in the room are specifically interested in this topic, though there may be others. So I can see we have Mr. Wilson and Ms. I'm going to say Krell. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. If you would like to speak, you could just raise your hand. And then Mr. Coughlin, if you could just let us know.
Peter Wilson's raised their hand.
Terrific. Would you allow him to join us?
Yes, good morning. I guess you can't see me.
Good morning.
Okay. Hi, guys. So I know most of you. I'm a commissioner with the township. And first of all, thank you for the very complete update as to what's going on with the school district and the buildings, and especially the bus barns. That's obviously we've had many conversations over the years about the bus barns and what you wanted to do with them and what we wanted to do with them. And I will just say offhand before I get to the lighting issue, the likelihood of putting significant flood barriers at that location, we have looked at because of the conditions that exist there, and it is extremely detrimental to the concept of keeping it as a public park. Most of them would require huge berms that would encompass and create a much larger potential de facto lake that would erase a lot of the benefits of that area being a park. So if you were interested in my vote, I would say move. Find another 5 or 7 acres or 10 acres where someplace else and relocate the facility. I think most of the neighbors would also agree with that. So I have gotten complaints, comments, primarily from the Crowells and other neighbors whose property back up on the stadium along the same lines that you were discussing, basically hours of operation. And I think they're I'm wearing two hats here. I'm wearing the hat of the township commissioner, and I'm wearing the hat of just a resident whose wife, who is much more athletic than I am, really enjoys the track and would loves the cushioned track aspect of that, and think it's and wants to use it more, as do many other residents in the township, as we have heard. But the light pollution that the frustration becomes, why do we have lights on, as was mentioned, when nobody's around? Or there's a snowstorm, or it's raining cats and dogs. And I just think there has to be some element of humanity cranked into the system there, and sensitivity cranked into the system, or the schedule that really addresses the immediate neighbors. And there are probably about 15 of them that really it affects significantly, just because literally it's in their backyard. The operational hours of the facility. And I think the Crowells would be more than capable and interested in commenting on this also. But the township would love to continue to have that resource for its residents. I think sometimes that we really haven't advertised, when when it's available and who it's available to. And I think signage would go a long way to improve that, like Mr. Thorne is suggesting. So those are my basic comments, and I would urge the Crowells to raise their hand and put their 2 cents in, or anybody else who's on the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. I know we have at least Maxine. Do we also have Felice? Would either of you like to speak? Here you go. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Felice Kroll. Nice to meet you. Our concern was that the use of the field in terms of the residents really hasn't been an issue for us over the years, but it seemed the times that the lights are on do seem new this winter. At like about middle of December, everybody noticed. And my neighbors were complaining. I've asked them to write into you folks, don't know that they have, but they were being awakened at 4 or 5 in the morning when the lights go on, and that was never done previously. And the lights staying on at night and on weekend nights was never done previously to this time. And that is the issue. The fact that people use it and it's open, it's fine with us. But these extra lights are very, very, very intrusive. And past practices have been that this hasn't been the case. So this, and in addition, right, you do see pouring rain, snow, and the lights are still on, which is absolutely bizarre and a complete waste of money, energy, and what have you. So we were basically asking that the way that the use of the lights go back, frankly, to the way they have been in the past, where they're not on at night like this constantly and early in the morning. My other point is there is another field right next to the stadium. There's an additional field that has lights and can be lit. And if you need to have something lit in the evening for just community use, why not light that field instead of the stadium? Because that's not intrusive to the neighbors. And
Also, if I can say something, this is Maxine. I believe, Dr. Yannicone, you had mentioned that you had an idea of keeping the stadium open for community use without lighting it, and that's perfectly fine. And that sounds like a real good middle ground. Use of neighbors or neighbors using was never an issue. I must tell you that one morning I opened my eyes at 5 in the morning a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was daylight, and then I realized it's 5 a.m. in January. That's how bright the lights are.
Mhm.
So
Thank you. I
wanna thank
appreciate you
your
reaching
suggestion.
out. And, just to reiterate, both for you and your sister and Mr. Wilson. So last summer, we had a request from the community to provide some general community use in the mornings and in the evenings when community groups, organized community groups, were not using the stadium. In particular, there's an interest in the walking track or sometimes running track, depending on who you are. And so I appreciate the comment about Nixon Field, the solo turf field that's on the other side of the main drive. But the request was actually the stadium. But I do understand the concern, and the lights did go on about mid-December because that's when the days got so short that during those hours, we felt it was very dark. But I do think for the board members, it would be a reasonable middle ground to consider maintaining the stadium as open and have a security guard there, but keep the lights off so that as the days get longer, there's more access. This is also potentially a cost savings to us because, as has been pointed out, we've been keeping the lights on more days, more evenings and mornings than we had previously, and there is a cost associated with that. So I think we can probably continue to be good neighbors for all the Fraser Road residents, as well as those who are interested in using the stadium with that kind of a decision. But we'll take our direction from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
If I could jump in here, just in the interest of full disclosure, I live on Fraser Road, but I'm not directly affected by the lights. So I just wanted that on the record. Dr. Yannicone, I think the middle ground you've suggested is a really good one, frankly. I think it makes sense. It sounds like the issue most acutely is felt in the morning. And I think in the morning hours anyway. And I think that the suggestion that you've laid out makes an awful lot of sense. I think we should try that first at least and see how it works.
I'm happy to do that. Mr. Thorne is happy to save a little money and turn the lights off in the early morning hours, and we can also do so in the evening hours.
I was interested to hear if it would be okay to have them on maybe from 5 to 7 in the evening.
So after work hours when students.
Yeah, and the Krauser, Peter can weigh in. I'd be happy to hear from you if you think that would be okay with you, just so we would have some of those evening hours for people to be able to run after work.
Yeah. Yes, I think that that possibly could work, as long as it's not interfering with the immediate neighbors' concerns of overlighting their backyards.
Yeah, we would probably only need those hours of light for about another 6 weeks. Once we move from day to daylight savings, sunset by I think March 13th is about 7:30. And so we wouldn't actually need the lights during those hours in the relatively near future. And then again, not until late November, I would think.
Yeah, we certainly could modify the weekend evening hours as well this time of year because our sports teams really aren't out there until the second week of March or so. That's when a lot of teams will be right after school practicing, and they'll be using the field in the evening going into the dark. But at least for right now, we could move the community use time down during the day for the weekend, so we wouldn't even have to have them on the weekends and the evenings.
Right.
Even in the mornings as well. I think the biggest piece that I'm thinking of is the communication to the community. How do we get that out there? And there's the shoulder times of spring and fall that those hours of use for the community may change and be fluid because daylight savings time and everything. So
Mr. Thorne, perhaps you and I could put together the communication. And Mr. Wilson, you receive messages that I send out. Yes, you're on my community group.
Yes,
So then perhaps you could send it out to township residents who do not have children in the schools.
yes.
through your list.
Yeah, we could push it out through our Parks and Recs department, I would guess.
Okay. So we could put that together and send that out and start next week. Does that sound? Today is Thursday, so perhaps we could give a little bit of notice and start
Sure.
on Monday.
Yeah, additionally, I think that if there were some signs at the stadium, which I don't believe there are any now, that, clearly outline the hours of operation, it would be helpful to the community.
Okay,
yeah, I can do that for sure.
that's no problem at all. We can also use the digital sign out on paper mail.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bedard, it looks like you wanted to.
Did. First of all, love having community members at this meeting, so thank you for coming. Mr. Wilson, it's exciting to have a commissioner at the meeting. Appreciate you being here. And I loved what you said about having inserting humanity into how we think about use of some of these assets. And I do want to make sure that coming out of this, because I'm supportive of us changing the use of the lights right now, because I think it's a very reasonable request. But I want to make sure that we're not creating hard and fast rules and leaving room for humanity. Meaning, if community members come back and say, look, this was such an important asset for us and our groups, or at a certain time of year, there's increased usage by the community and we get a lot of requests from the community to put the lights back on, we should be having that conversation on an ongoing basis, because these lights in the school grounds are meant for the highest use and value to the community and constituents, the neighbors being one, and we have an agreement in place that we're standing by. But I just want to make sure we have conversations about this and don't just make a rule and move on if there's other feedback that comes in after we make this change. Does that make sense to everyone?
No.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, the facilities were built for the school, not for the community, even though we as taxpayers, and I don't have children, I taught public school all my life, but these are school facilities that are being opened up to the community. And that's how I see it first and foremost. Reopening it from 5 to 7 a few nights a week is fine, but I want you to be aware that when the new lights were put in, when the field was redone a couple of years ago, they've never been able to angle the lights so that they don't hit the backs of our houses, our backyards and the backs of our houses, which have a lot of windows in them. So it sort of lights up the whole area in a way that it never did before. I know that Mr. Thorne and the lighting people tried to work with the lights and angle them away, but it never really was successful. So that's part of the problem. It isn't just that lights are on, but it's sort of lighting up the house. Opening it up a couple evenings, 5 to 7 seems rational and fair, but not every night. And
Lost her. Oh, there she is.
sorry about that. You didn't hear me. First of all, I feel like school facilities are school facilities, and they are allowing the community to use them. But when the field was reconstructed several years ago, it was done for the use of the students. We as taxpayers pay for it, but we don't go in and use other school facilities a whole lot. So I think that the first and foremost, these were done for the use of the schools. Speaking as a former teacher. Also, I think it's a rational idea, a fair idea to open the track from 5 to 7 a few nights a week, not weekends, and not 5 nights a week. And part of the problem is that with the lights, when the field was reconstructed several years ago, they tried to angle the lights away from the houses. but they weren't successful. Mr. Thorne worked real hard on this. It's always good working with him. He's a real good person, but they've never been able to. So our backyards and backs of the houses are totally lit when the lights are on at the stadium. And it's intrusive. So if you can limit it to 2 or 3 evenings, weekdays, week evenings, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
One last thing, when we made this agreement with the school, it was vis-a-vis because this, not the usage, but because the lights were being put up for the first time.
Right.
And when you talk about the community wanting to use the field, I understand that. I was at a public meeting with our previous superintendent, who basically said, you know, that we were not going to be changing the use of the lights when the school field was improved. And I understand people want to use the field, and that's fine, but it really does affect the neighbors when those lights are on. So please keep that in mind. That's why we had this agreement. It was because of the lights.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you reaching out and the input, and as Mr. Bedard said, and attending today.
Okay, that does it for the agenda. Is there any other issues or items, concerns anybody would like to discuss? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending, and again, welcome new members. And we're always available. Reach out anytime. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
I just have one question, Mr. Thorne.
Yes.
Who would like the documents so that you can prepare your board report for the 15th? I'm waiting for people to do this. You can let me know. You can let me know in an email who is going to actually provide that board report. We'll make sure you have all the information.
Mary Jo, can we get a copy of the project list that Craig provided?
Yes, absolutely. Not a
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, this will conclude our February 3rd Property Committee meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, take
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.